Hello, welcome back to English with BDM. This is the first one in a series of videos on direct and indirect speech. But before we get to discussing the topic, let us have a look back at the earlier video, English Grammar Lesson 11, in which I explained the main features, the general characteristics of the complex sentence, and its close relation with indirect speech. There we have seen that the category of the complex sentence totally depends on the principal clause. So when the principal clause is declarative, the whole complex sentence is declarative. When it is interrogative, the whole complex sentence is interrogative. When it is imperative, the whole complex sentence is imperative. And in each case, the subordinate clause is declarative. We also know that the subordinate clause begins with a connective, a subordinating conjunction or a question word, etc. And according to the sequence of tenses, we know that if the finite verb in the principal clause is in any form of past tense, the tense of the finite verb in the subordinate clause is to be in a suitable, appropriate past tense. Now, one point I want to bring to your notice that I have explained the features of the finite verb in English Grammar Lesson 2. So I request you to watch that video because the finite verb is very, very important in every sphere of English grammar. We cannot make any sentence without having clear idea of the finite verb. We cannot transform sentences without having clear idea of the finite verb. We cannot change speech from direct to indirect comprehensively, confidently, without having a clear idea of the finite verb. So I request you to watch video number 2 and video number 11 before you watch this video. Then now, what do we mean by direct and indirect speech? We can report the words of someone in two ways. We can repeat or quote the exact words of the speaker. This is called direct speech. We can also report the speaker's words in our own words. This is called indirect speech. In writing and printing, the actual words of the speaker are placed within inverted commas or quotation marks or simply quotes. And the introductory clause, the clause that tells us who said the quoted words to whom, is placed outside the quotation marks. And usually this introductory clause is placed first with a comma, then the exact words of the speaker are placed within inverted commas with a full stop at the end, because each one of these sentences is a declarative sentence. We know, as I discussed in the previous video, that the reporting clause, the introductory clause, tells us who said the quoted words to whom. And this clause becomes the principal clause of the complex sentence in the indirect speech. As this clause is invariably only declarative in each and every sentence in the indirect speech, and as this clause becomes the principal clause of the complex sentence in the indirect speech, the whole complex sentence, therefore, in the indirect speech is a declarative sentence. So at the end of an indirect speech sentence, we can use only full stop, whatever may be the category of the sentence in the direct speech. We know that to begin the subordinate clause, we need a connective. And in reporting a declarative sentence, we can use only that as a connective. We also know that according to the rules of the sequence of tenses, if the finite verb in the principal clause is in the past tense, the tense in the subordinate clause, the tense of the finite verb in the subordinate clause is to be in some appropriate past tense with a few exceptions. Now, when we change P's, we definitely eliminate the inverted commas and the comma. We place the conjunction that here, and if there is this indirect object, the person spoken to, it is very often provided in the direct speech, but in some situations it is dropped, it is not mentioned when it is obvious. In sentence number 4, his uncle said, I must leave for the airport now. Number 5, the teacher said, the earth moves or goes around the sun. When this indirect object, that is the person spoken to, is mentioned, we use told in the indirect speech without the preposition to. When there is the indirect object, we said there must be the preposition to, but in the indirect speech, said to is replaced with told. But if there is not that indirect object, said is not changed. Now, if there is any present tense form in the direct speech, provided this verb of reporting is in the past tense, this verb of reporting is most often, almost always in the past tense, because we report the words that someone said sometime in the past. So let us assume that this verb is always in the past tense, but for practice, you may come across sentences where this verb of reporting may be in the present tense or in the future tense. And when this verb of reporting is not in the past tense, that is, when it is either in the present or in the future tense, we need not change the tense. But when this verb is in the past tense, we have to change the tense in the direct speech with a few exceptions. If there is any present tense form in the direct speech, it changes to corresponding past tense. So the simple present tense or present indefinite tense changes to the past indefinite or past simple tense. The present continuous or progressive tense changes to the past continuous or progressive tense. The present perfect changes to the past perfect, and the present perfect continuous changes to the past perfect continuous. If there is the present form of any modal in the direct speech, it changes to its past form. So, shall turns into should or would depending on the person and number of the subject in the indirect speech. Will changes to would, can to could, may to might. Have to or has to changes to had to. If there is the past tense of any modal in the direct speech, the past tense of any modal in the direct speech, such as should, could, might, used to, had to, etc., we need not change the tense. We should not change the tense. If there is the modal must in the direct speech, as in number 4, we have to replace it with the modal had to in the indirect. Because must, the helping verb must, has no past tense form of its own. The past simple tense in the direct speech changes to the past perfect. The past continuous changes to the past perfect continuous. And the past perfect and the past perfect continuous do not change. Now we have to make some other necessary changes, such as pronouns, time adverbs like now, today, yesterday, etc., place adverb like here, in this place, etc. The first person pronoun, any first person pronoun or possessive such as my and our, takes the person, number, and gender, 3 points. Person of the speaker, number of the speaker, and gender of the speaker. So here the speaker is a girl. Therefore, this I, the first person singular number pronoun, changes to she, the third person singular number feminine pronoun in the nominative case. In the nominative case means that this form of the pronoun can be used as the subject of the sentence or of the clause. So I turns into she. Any second person pronoun, of course there is one second person pronoun you and its possessive form yo, takes the person number and gender of the person spoken to, that is mother or here his friend, the boy's friend. So you here is the boy's friend. It is the object of the verb did notice. So we replace it with the objective form of the third person singular number masculine pronoun him. Now let us try to understand, let us examine how each of these sentences, the declarative sentences, change from direct speech to indirect speech. Number 1, the girl said to her mother, I have already completed my homework. The girl told her mother, so it is replaced with told, that we bring in the conjunction that to initiate, to begin the subordinate clause, that she had already completed her homework. Have completed is present perfect tense active voice. Naturally, it changes to the past perfect tense active voice had already completed her homework. Number 2, the boy said to his friend, I did not notice you in the class today. Did notice is simple past tense active voice. Did is a clear indicator or marker of the past simple tense active voice in the negative sentence. It is also used in questions in the same tense and voice, that is past simple tense active voice. So did clearly shows us, did clearly indicates that this sentence, this verb did notice, is in the simple past tense active voice, and we know that the simple past tense changes to the past perfect tense. Therefore, did notice changes to had noticed with that verb not in between. The boy told his friend that he had not noticed him in the class that day. Number 3, the villager said to the man, the rabbit dog was killed last week. Was killed is in the past simple tense but in the passive voice. So the past simple tense is to be changed to the past perfect tense. We change the tense but we do not change the voice. So the voice remains passive. We simply change the tense. Was killed thus turns into had been killed. The villager told the man. We can also use the verb informed in special situations. Told the man that the rabbit dog had been killed the previous week. That verb phrase last week changes to that verb phrase the previous week. Number 4, his uncle said, I must leave for the airport now. Must is replaced with had to. The first person singular number pronoun changes to he. The third person singular masculine pronoun in the nominative case, because the speaker here is his uncle. His uncle said that. We don't say change said, as there is no indirect object with the preposition to. His uncle said that he had to leave for the airport then. Number 5, the teacher said the earth moves or goes round the sun. This is a general truth, a universal truth, and we cannot change the tense of a sentence that conveys a general truth. Therefore, goes round or moves round remains the same. The teacher, we simply bring in the conjunction that the teacher said that the earth moves or goes round the sun. My friend said to me, my father gets up early every morning. Here we get a habit. And if the habit is still pursued or followed by my friend's father, we need not change the tense. So my friend told me that his father gets up early every morning. The verb remains unchanged. The tense of the verb remains unchanged. But if the habit is no longer pursued or followed by my friend's father, if it is a habit of the past, my friend's father, for example, stopped getting up early every morning for some obvious reason, then we cannot retain the simple present tense. We have then to use either used to, the modal used to or would with the base form of the verb. We know that to express some habit of the past, we use either used to as a modal or would with the base form of the principal verb. Therefore, in that case, the answer would be, my friend told me that his father used to or would get up early every morning. Now, if there is this form in the direct speech, used to get up or would get up, here in the direct speech, my father used to get up early every morning, we need not change the tense, because we have learned that if there is the past tense form of any modal in the direct speech, it may be used to, it may be would, it may be should, could, had to, etc. We need not change. We must not change the tense in the indirect speech. So it would remain the same. My friend told me that his father used to or would get up early every morning. Number 7, she said to me, my father does not know you. This is a negative statement. Does not know. In the simple present tense active voice, naturally it turns into past simple tense active voice in the negative form. So does not turns into did not. Similarly, do not in the active voice turns into did not plus the base form of the main verb. Therefore, the answer in the indirect speech is, she told me that her father did not know me. Her father did not know me. In number 8, we get the helping verb do, but it is not a negative sentence. It is a positive one. We use do does in the simple present tense active voice and did in the past simple tense active voice to lay extra emphasis on the main verb in positive sentences, in positive statements. So, I do support actually means I really support you, I certainly support you, etc. So, we can lay emphasis on these two tenses, present simple active by using do or does, past simple active voice by using did. But we can also lay the same emphasis without using the helping verb to do by using appropriate adverbs like really, certainly, surely, definitely, etc. Now to change the speech, we should use the past tense of do, that is did, to retain the emphasis. Yes, we have the liberty to drop did and use the adverb certainly or really. So the answer may be, the man told or assured his friend that he did support him on that point, or he really supported. If we drop did, we have to use the second form, the past tense form of the verb support here. And if there is did, this pattern in the direct speech, to lay emphasis on the verb, in the direct speech, if the sentence was something like this, I did support you on this point. I did support you on this point. Now, whenever you find did in the direct speech, either in a positive sentence or in a negative sentence, or even a question, we have to change it to the past perfect tense, because we know that when there is past simple tense, either negative or positive, a question, etc., we have to change it to the past perfect tense. So, in that case, the verb would be had supported, had really supported. As in the past perfect tense, there is no helping verb to lay emphasis on the verb, main verb. We have to use some suitable adverb like really, certainly, etc. The last one, number 9. This is my car, said the man to the officer, and I have the papers to substantiate it. We know that if this introductory clause is not placed at the beginning, it may be placed at the end or in the middle. We have to place it, always place it in the beginning of the sentence in the indirect speech, because it turns into the principal clause, and this clause is actually the direct object of this verb of reporting. Therefore, in the indirect speech too, this subordinate clause is the object, the direct object, and this one, the person, is the indirect object. The man claimed to the officer that that was his car, and he had the papers to substantiate it. This is a demonstrative pronoun. It is the changed form of this, this one. And this, that, is the connective, the conjunction that we bring in from outside to begin the subordinate clause. So this is a conjunction, and this one is a demonstrative pronoun. That is all about grammar today. In the next video, I'll be explaining the rules for changing different categories of interrogative sentences from direct speech to indirect speech. Thank you for watching. If you think the videos are useful, you may consider subscribing to the channel, sharing the videos, and press the like icon. Expecting to meet you soon in the next video. Until then, goodbye.